Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome into Life Planning 101. This morning, my name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services here out of the great state of Texas. I come to you on a very somber day, I feel like. It's October 9th is when I'm actually recording this show. And I first of all on the show just want to lift up a prayer to all the people in the Middle East, no matter what side of the coin they're sitting on, let their hearts be softened and let this violence and this hatred just end. And, I think we're living in a world that it just seems like things are getting more and more chaotic all the time. And of course, I'm going to be talking about lawsuits today. And lawsuits are spun out of that same place of heart. And so our world does need prayers. And so I think, just taking a minute to ask everybody, ask all of our listeners to do your job, to fall on your knees and do your part, because they all need our prayers. We all need our prayers each and every day. But I don't want to go off on a soapbox today because we do have something important to share with you on Life Planning 101 about you, helping you live life on purpose as we always do. And we've got a great show lined up. In fact, I just got back from a conference last week. It was a wonderful conference. I spent a lot of time with very successful people that helped me up my game. It's a study group, and they share ideas and I share ideas, and we have a lot of offside conversations. And one of which was a gentleman that I've worked with. I don't know. I've probably known him about a decade now. And he said this to me before, but I thought, I really got to share that with our listeners because it's very true. He says, there's only two times that you can be sued. And the first is when you do something. And the second is when you don't. Now, I know that you got a little chuckle out of that one, but it was a little satirical, and I get that. But there is really a sad truth lurking behind that, and it goes back to my opening statements, right? Unfortunately, we're living in a very litigious world, a litigious society. Now, we would all like to believe that the people we encounter in life just simply wouldn't do that, because people are inherently good. I truly believe that. And we'd all like to believe that bad things do happen, but it won't happen to me. Now, I call that the neighbor syndrome. In other words, it would happen to the neighbor, but it's not going to happen to me, right? And we know that isn't the case, but yet our minds tell us otherwise. And so I if it's not enough just to say, hey, we live in a litigious world, let's look at the statistics. Did you know, and this is kind of mind-blowing to me, that there is an estimated 40 million lawsuits filed every year in the United States. 40 million. That's crazy. Now, I live in a town of, I don't know if our population size is actually right, but it's like less than 3,000 people, right? 40 million lawsuits. DFW isn't that big of a number of people. I mean, this is crazy. Can you imagine how much money is spent defending those cases? Much less how much money is spent on those cases, okay? I'm just talking about if you got sued, what would actually come out of your pocket to defend your case? This is unconscionable. I mean, this is horrific. It's a good time for Halloween, I guess. But in reality, I mean, this is a scary thing to really think about, that happens on an everyday basis. And I think the question that you have to ask yourself is could you afford a lawsuit? Defending a lawsuit. I shared with the show a while back, and maybe Chris can help with this. Make sure this is in the newsletter as a resource that gave some really good ideas too on asset protection. So we're going to get into that here in a bit. But, one of the things that I'd shared about was the fact that if you were sued, so let's say that you run over somebody or whatever, what's going to happen is a discoverable, it's called a discoverable, is going to be sent out. And by federal law, you have to fill that discoverable out in honesty. And so if, this this victim goes to an attorney, and the attorney hears their situation. They're going to send out this discoverable, and they really don't even know what the full story is. It doesn't matter. They get it back and they see that there's assets or income there to go after. They may say, I think we got a case. So I'm going to ask you, could you afford a lawsuit? What would be the first thing that you'd do? Who would you go to? Where would you start? I mean, would you start with an attorney? And I can tell you, attorney after attorney story I've heard over the years that, it didn't turn out so good and they had to switch attorneys because they were just taking money from them. Now, not all attorneys are like that. Please don't get me wrong. We work with some incredible attorneys, but it doesn't mean the ones that we work with are the only ones out there. But the reality is this is your dollar. Is that good? Can you afford it? Maybe you could. Maybe you couldn't. Maybe you don't know. That's probably the answer. Because really, it doesn't matter your wealth, does it? We don't even know what the lawsuit is that we're talking about. We don't even know if you're really at fault, because you really might be. It might have been an accident, but you're at fault. And here's the other question. Can you imagine the stress of getting sued? My bet is that you don't even want to imagine that. And no matter your answer to any of this, there is wisdom in one thing here, and that's called prevention. Yep, we help people live life on purpose, not by default. That is not our goal. And when you get sued because of lack of, you might get sued anyway, but you don't have any preventative measures in place for the time when you do get sued, what happens? I think of it like this. You hear stories of people getting sick, and maybe you have a really good friend and they're extremely athletic, and you find out that they've got cancer, and the doctor tells them, well, look, you should be able to come through this with flying colors because you're extremely healthy, you eat healthy, you do all these things, right? And they do. And it's really, they're this rock star of testimony to be able to be for others, to show them how they fought off the cancer. But they had a little preventative planning in place, wouldn't you say? And then you may have someone with the same situation that they can't fight it off because their immune system's already down, because it's already fighting all these other things because they're simply not healthy. Now, is that always the case? No, it's not. It's not always the case. But which would you rather bet on? So don't get me wrong. Having preventative measures is not an A-OK that you're not getting sued. It's not going to prevent you from getting sued. After all, it's a little hard to actually do something or don't do something if those are the two times that you could get sued. You're always going to be doing something or not doing something. So your chance is always out there. However, you could certainly know where you stand. You could certainly know what is at risk. And you could certainly know who you would need to call. And maybe on someone else's dime. So when we come back on Life Planning 101 today, we're going to talk about an asset protection plan. Because really, this is a foundation to living life on purpose for your whole life plan. If you don't have an asset protection plan, you're literally walking around every day like a piece of glass, waiting for a sledgehammer to find you. I think it's worth listening to if you want your life plan to be successful. So don't miss this right here on Life Planning 101 when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services here in the great town of Eastland, Texas. And I want to tell you about an engineer. So he died and he reported to the pearly gates. Well, St. Peter, he goes to check his dossier and he says, you're an engineer. You're in the wrong place. So he reports to the gates of hell and he's let in. Well, pretty soon that engineer, he's a little dissatisfied with the heat, so to speak. There isn't much comfort down there, and he starts designing and building all these improvements. And for a while, things are getting better, right? There's air conditioning, flushing toilets, escalators, and he's actually this pretty popular guy in hell. Well, one day, God calls Satan up, and he asks him, so how's it going down there? Well, Satan replies, hey, things are great. We got this guy that's helped us. So he's got air conditioning going. We got flushing toilets. We got escalators. And there is no telling what this engineer is going to come up with next. Well, God replies, what? Wait a minute. You got an engineer? That's a mistake. He should have never gotten there. You send him up here right now. Satan says, no way. I like having him on staff. I'm keeping here. God says, you send him back up here or I'm going to sue. Of course, Satan starts laughing. He says, yeah, right. And just where are you going to get that lawyer? Oh, I know. I poked fun at my good lawyer friends, but I really don't think this is applicable to anybody I work with. We work with some great attorneys. I know there's great attorneys out there. I have great friends who are attorneys, so we can poke a little fun, and I know they do the same with us. So the reality is that there are some pretty nasty lawsuits out there, and there's some pretty nasty attorneys out there too. And you don't want to be on the butt end of that, so to speak. And that's what we're talking about today, is that, there's 40 million lawsuits filed every year in this country. And the question for you is, could you afford this lawsuit? And could you imagine the stress of getting sued? And where would you start if something were to happen to you? And don't give me that neighbor syndrome that, it won't happen to me. It might happen to my neighbor, but it's not going to happen to me. No, we live in a world that you could literally be doing nothing or doing something and you're getting sued. So part of having a successful life plan is having a good asset protection plan. Key thing here, if you don't know if you have a good asset protection plan, yeah, that probably means that you have some work to do, okay? Because you should know. You should absolutely know. I mean, it's foundational. We have what we call that life planning pyramid, right? And in the bottom row, there's so much asset protection on there. I can't even tell you how important it is. We have this really cool thing we use, and it's very simplistic. I mean, totally elementary. Red, green, or yellow, like a stoplight. And as that pyramid, we start work on those asset protection plans or anything else, we turn things from red or yellow to green to indicate that things are in good shape. But I will tell you this, when we start working with people, I have yet to not seen an asset protection plan piece of their pyramid that isn't red. And these are successful people. These are people that have professionals in place. Well, you may be asking, well, what the heck? What's up with those professionals? It doesn't mean they're bad professionals. They may be doing their job just fine. But the missing component is that they haven't had someone to look at everything holistically and quarterback their plan. You remember we've talked about this so many times. It's actually how my dad got into the business, is that, he'd see the bankers, he'd see the insurance agents, he'd see the investment advisors, he'd see the attorneys, he'd see the accountants, and always the solution was what they had in their toolbox. And so, successful people would go to all these different people on their own and try to manage their plan on their own. Well, how the heck do you manage your plan if you've never had that experience before? How do you really do that? I mean, really, I have to tell you, I got some breaking news. You don't know what you don't know. Okay, yeah, that's a little brass, but it's true. I don't know what I don't know. We all don't know what we don't know. Unless we know what we don't know, then that's the one thing that could end up hurting us. There is so much wisdom to be said for experience. And we know that. I mean, as older people get older and younger people think older people are dumb, and then they figure out when they're older that they're not dumb. They're actually really wise people and they should have listened to them all along. Why is that the case? Well, it's the same thing here. You're very successful, most likely because you have kind of that type A personality, right? And you've never been scared to just go get it done and get what you need to get done. But there's also this blend of that and having humility so that you don't get hurt along the way. Because as you become more and more successful, there are more and more things that you need to be paying attention to, some of which you don't even know that you don't know that you don't know that you don't know that you should be listening to or looking at. And that's why we do what we do. It's not just our experiences. It's those of the people that we've worked with for over 30 years. It's the people that I just got back from. I went to Boston for 3 days and spent time with this group of people that I'm going to tell you, they're like some of the best in the industry. And we share. and we talk and we help each other get better and we share each other's stories and we find out what's happening out there. And that's a full-time job. So you can't do that and do what you do successfully. So I'm going to get off my soapbox here. But the reason I want to hit this so hard and I want to make this so brass to you is the fact that it needs to be very transparent, that unless you have had help putting together an asset protection plan, a holistic asset protection plan, you probably don't have one or a good one at the very least. And this is the first thing, one of the first things, okay? Sometimes not the first thing, but it is one of the first things that we begin to dissect when we look at a family's situation. And it's a holistic process. And it takes some time. It takes a lot of time in some instances, because in some instances, people have a wreck. You've sit there and you've accumulated success for years and years and years and years and years, and you don't even know where everything is. And that happens. So if that's happening, who's reviewing all of that? Who's looking at that asset protection plan? Someone has to start. So it's to start with reviewing everything that you have, all of your assets. How are they titled? Your income, your debt, any insurance, how that insurance relates to the assets or how it doesn't, how those current asset protection vehicles, such as your life insurance or annuities or trusts or retirement accounts or whatever, are set up. And I'm going to tell you this, that most people live under false impressions or false assumptions. They, and I'll give you an example. They say, well, I've got umbrella insurance. Well, by the time we get it, we figure out that it's business umbrella insurance. And when I'm talking umbrella, I'm talking liability, okay? And they have no personal liability. In fact, they have this piece of property over here that has no insurance on it whatsoever. And oh, by the way, they let their kids' friends come out there and ride four-wheelers. And oh, by the way, they're worth $15 million. They get sued. What's the first thing you're going to do? Call their insurance agent. Their insurance agent's going to say, we don't have that property covered. How's that work? Right? This is extremely important to have that holistic process to review all of that. Another false assumption that we see all the time. I have a trust. Well, I've got a trust. Everything's in a trust. Okay. So we get the trust. Guess what it is? It's a living, revocable trust. Revocable means you could take it back. Well, if you could take it back, guess who else could get into it? No joke. Okay. Just because you have a trust doesn't mean anything. Most trusts don't have a lot of asset protection, and even trusts that do have a lot of asset protection, it still doesn't stop things from getting sued. So if you have a piece of property inside with other assets, then those other assets are still exposed to that lawsuit. So it's extremely important, even if it's the right type of trust that helps with that. They may have everything in retirement accounts and annuities, and they think they're all set. But oh, wait a minute, they make $500,000 a year. Did you know what you could be sued for your earning potential as well? These are false assumptions that, unfortunately, are often a culprit for really bad surprises at the wrong time. I hate to go back to the Halloween theme, but boo, here you are. You don't want to be scared out of your mind because you get a phone call, right? So when we come back on Life Planning 101, let's talk about how to not have that happen. Let's talk about how to have a real asset protection plan in place. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services right here in Eastland, Texas. I want to give a shout out to Chris McCormick. He's our graphic artist. He manages all of our web content. And I just want to thank him because as I'm sitting here thinking he needs to link this up to another article we did on asset protection not too long ago that had some great tools in it. So by the way, make sure you go online and you subscribe to our newsletter, www.kennedy-financial.com. So you can get that newsletter and you can have access to that article as well as what we're putting out this week to discuss this asset protection. This is really important, making sure that you've got this part of your plan, because really you can spend a lifetime, you can spend a lot of time, a lot of money building a plan to live life on purpose, retire successfully, stay successfully retired, and all that goes by the wayside because you don't have a good asset protection plan. And maybe you had neighbor syndrome. Oh, it won't happen to me. Well, that neighbor syndrome is a bad syndrome to get because unfortunately it's a little bit contagious and it usually ends in pretty bad disaster. So we talked about before we left that most people are living under false assumptions when we actually start to dive through their asset protection plan or what they have for asset protection, because they think certain insurances cover certain things. Maybe they think certain trusts are actually asset protection vehicles. Maybe they think they have everything tied up, but their income exposes them. Whatever those false assumptions are, that's kind of the first things to look at. And we found that, some people, when you start talking about asset protection, or you just start talking about gathering all of their assets to review, their insurances to review, and taking a look at this, they get overwhelmed. They throw their hands up and they say, "Oh, this is overwhelming. It's complex. It's frustrating. I don't want to deal with it." And then when they realize, okay, what's actually going to happen, maybe that's when they throw their hands up, because they realize that it's going to take a team to get the job done, because it does. Okay. Look, I'm not an attorney. Obviously, I was poking fun at attorneys, but I'm not an attorney, right? We are not your property and casualty insurance agent, and we're not your banker. We're not your accountant. And most of the time, it takes a team to get an asset protection plan put in place. Everybody's got to be on the same page. A lot of times it takes a conversation, especially with us and an insurance agent, sometimes the attorney on the phone at the same time, sometimes the accountant on the phone at the same time, sometimes the banker on the phone at the same time. And everybody needs to be on the same page about what's supposed to be done so that it all aligns and there aren't gaps or overlaps. Because what ends up happening is somebody says, "Well, you don't need that." But once we get on the phone with them, we explain why they need it. They say, "Oh, okay, well, that makes more sense now. I didn't understand that." Yeah. So that's where we come in. We are a life planner. Our job is simply to help you live life on purpose. Find out what that means for you. Okay. That's the first thing we do. Second thing we do is we start looking at your situation holistically. We identify the gaps. We identify the overlaps, anything that could endanger what it means to you to live life on purpose. That's what we're going to focus on. We're going to expose that. We're going to say, "Hey, here it is." And the next question is, do you want to fix this? And if the answer is yes, then our next task is to help you explore options and opportunities to help you get everything on track. That starts where the communication is. We pull in these different advisors and discuss things with them and look at different things so that we can take them to you and say, "Okay, here, 1, 2, 3, what do you think?" Right? And then last but not least is we go back and we help quarterback the things to get the job done and to start managing it. So I want to leave you with one last note today, okay? This is a lot. And I think a lot of people don't get an asset protection plan in place because, well, there's a lot of reasons. They procrastinate ultimately, but they maybe say it takes too much time. Maybe they say, "I don't want to spend the money to do all that." Or they say, "I don't know where to start." Well, I want to ask you one question. If you were to get sued today, what time would that take you? What cost would that be to you? And where would you start? So the bottom line is, you plan now or you pay later. Don't miss another moment. Know you can live life on purpose and not by default. And it starts with that asset protection plan. Oh, by the way, we're here to help. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. God bless you. Pray for the Middle East. Pray for our country. And we'll see you here next week on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment and advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group, LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.